I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Of course, I acknowledge my co-launcher, the Honourable Julie Bishop, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Australia, Professor Glyn Davis, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Melbourne, and I want to pay particular tribute to Carol Schwartz. I think if you take Madeleine Albright's statement that there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women, then there must be a special place in heaven for Carol Schwartz, because Carol has, over, not just through this program, but over many, many years, sought out women across the Australian community in politics, in the arts, in the community sector, sought them out to support them, not for any motivation of her own benefit, but because she sees a role for women in leadership in Australia. Carol, thank you for the leadership that you've shown. We've got many members of Parliament here today, and of course when I start naming people I'll miss someone out, so I'm not going to, but just to say how wonderful it is to see parliamentary colleagues joining us today. And I thought I'd start by sharing a little bit of correspondence. Now, this correspondence is a little old. It's from 1898, and it's not in my email backlog. I actually found it. A constituent sent it to me, and he said my husband might like it. It's entitled "The Female Franchise," and I won't read the whole thing. I'll read a few choice comments from a man who signs himself "Married to a Political Wife." He says, I will ask, do political women make good wives? Decidedly no. A young man should shun a girl with a political education, even though he agrees with her opinions, for if he marries her, he won't always agree with her opinions. If a young wife shows a tendency to go on committees, the husband should promptly discourage her. Committees are a new form of lunacy, quite incurable. I know married women who will go 10 miles to go on a committee. Now, you would think, isn't it wonderful that these sorts of attitudes are so far in history, so far behind us, that we find them comical today? This is a letter I received a little more recently. When are women going to stop stuffing up this world and also learn to show a little respect for other people and learn some manners? Women have stuffed up politics. Females have stuffed up politics, real estate, banking, medical. Who would want to go to a female doctor? They do not even do nursing properly anymore, and you can imagine how it goes on. He says, fortunately, someone has tried to throw them out of car sales, and that is starting to improve. Women should not be permitted in politics. This is maybe 2 or 3 years ago that I received this letter. So, Carol, I think your initiative is a terrific one, because women entering politics, you find an incredible amount of old-fashioned ideas, even about a woman's right to put her hand up to stand for public office. Of course things are better. We've had a female Prime Minister, a female Governor-General, we've had female premiers and first ministers in many states, we've had female governors in many states. Of course we have our first female Foreign Minister, first female Defence Minister, as the Foreign Minister has pointed out. Of course things are better, but we need to do better still to reach full equality in Australia. Plato said that if women are expected to do the same work as men, we must teach them the same things. And in a formal sense, that's been happening for a long time. Of course, women struggled to enter into Australian universities in the first place, but every university now would see themselves as not only benefiting from the equal admission of women, but in fact, most universities are seeing more women graduates. So, in a formal sense, women are achieving equality in education, but we know that in politics, what you learn formally is a very important thing. What you learn informally, the informal mentoring networks that happen in politics, are just as important. And I'm very fortunate, and I know most of the women in this room are very fortunate, that they've had great female role models and also great male role models. I have to pay particular tribute to Madam Speaker, who I know took a particular interest, for example, in a young Julie Bishop when she entered the Parliament and was a great supporter. I used to see them conspiring across the chamber, having little chats now and again. Each of us, I think, have had that sort of relationship with male and female role models. But the simple fact is that organisations that have a preponderance of men have a natural tendency for men to mentor people who remind them of a younger version of themselves, to mentor other young men that remind them of themselves when they were young and keen and idealistic and had all the vim and vigour that takes you through a political life. So I think as well as the formal skills that will be taught in this course, Carol, the informal networking opportunities are absolutely critical. And I'll make one last comment about what is critical to see greater equality in our parliaments. And the Foreign Minister alluded to this. Different organisations, different political parties will have different notions about how to increase female representation within their own parties. I know that there are plenty of women who don't support quotas and targets, but I'll tell you why I do. Because we have seen the proof in the Labor Party of what a target does. I was at the ALP conference in Hobart where we set our first target in 1994. In 1994, 18.4% of our parliamentarians were women. In 2005, 45% of our parliamentarians are women. I do not believe that would have happened without the focus that a target provides, because in every individual seat there is always an excuse to pre-select the bloke who's so exceptional. In this one case, of course they say I'm a supporter of equality. Of course I believe half of our parliamentarians should be women. But in my case, in this seat, there's a very special reason that that rule shouldn't apply to me. The reason we set targets is because as institutions, we should be held to account for our achievements. And that's why I think, as well as the formal skills that we learn in a course like this, as well as the informal networking opportunities it gives and the informal networking opportunities that we have in our own parties and in our parliaments, the formal networking support we have in organisations like Emily's List, we also have to address structural inequalities, because if you don't change organisations deliberately, they continue to drift on as they've always been. Thank you.